who we are expecting this morning to have a conversation with us in studio, yet to arrive, but we certainly hope they will be making it on time. Stuck in the elections rut is a question we're asking. High stakes politics a year after the polls. Is Kenya moving? We will be joined by John Kagusha, Mukurweini Member of Parliament, Mheshimiwa Nabina Bwera, Lugari Member of Parliament, and Justina Wamai, the 2022 presidential running mate, in a moment. And we'll be trying to just get an understanding of exactly where we are 1 year after the polls, all the conversations that we're having right now in terms of the dialogue that is happening, and of course, what else is making headlines this morning. But we're going to begin with the Daily Nation here, of course. And this is what is captured on the front page of the DN. The big salary review, all right? Well, you have teachers, police officers, and the disciplined forces at large, as well as workers in county governments, who are the biggest beneficiaries in the latest salary review after their take-home pay was raised by higher rates than other public servants. And you can have a look at that breakdown there at the very side of the DN as well. The budget distribution for the salary review for state and public officers in terms of shillings. The Teaching Service Commission getting 44.2%. Security forces 20.9%, county governments 18.8%, other public officers 3.4%, county state officers, judiciary, state officers as well as executive state officers 1.9, 1.4, 0.6% respectively, and parliament state officers 0.4% as well. So the SRC says the review seeks to harmonize salaries across the public service. And just a little bit down there on the DN, there's also the issue of the scorecard. 15 members of parliament yet to utter a word in the House. That is captured on that report that was released by Mzalendo Trust as well. Also, a report, the Ombudsman exposing rot at the immigration, painting a troubling picture of passport applicants being overcharged and documents vanishing under mysterious circumstances, raising serious questions about the department's operation. And also, Kenyans have bagged 25 million for their innovations. That you have Kenyan innovators Peter Njeri and Esther Kimani, who are fitted at a global award ceremony recognizing individuals whose work is inclined towards ending extreme poverty and its systemic causes. All right. And also, what will be forming the basis of our discussion this morning, the Ruto-Raila talks start off on a cordial start, all right? The crisis talks between the president and opposition leader Raila Odinga beginning on a cordial and conciliatory note yesterday. Their representatives agreed to form a technical team to iron out the differences on the agenda for the negotiations. We'll be looking at that in just a moment as well. But let's see what else is captured inside here. I think we've talked about that, where these are the two Kenyans who have won 25 million shillings for life-changing innovations. If you want to get an understanding of exactly what these innovations are all about, you can get that on the second page of the DN. Also, police say Thika woman found dead after 9 months could have been killed. All right, that's the 82-year-old woman from Thika in Kiambu County whose decomposing body was discovered 9 months after her death. And detectives now say she may have been killed, adding a new twist to the case that has shocked the country. And preliminary investigations by the police, which have now been taken over by the DCI homicide unit, suggest a well-coordinated murder plot after the carcasses of Leah Njeri's dogs and chickens were found in her compound. All right, so this is a new twist to this particular report. There have been no meetings to plan the woman's burial, and no relatives have gone to claim the body yet. So that's another development from this story that has hit the national headlines across the country. All right, neighbors say they got concerned after not seeing the retired teacher for a long time and alerted the police. That's when we came to know of the 82-year-old woman who had already died 9 months ago and was in her home alone. All right, so this is a new twist. We'll be continuing to keep tabs on those developments as well. But just to mention, we actually now just joined in studio by Mheshimiwa John Kagusha Mukurweini, Member of Parliament. A very good morning to you. Good to see you, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning.
I hope you did not meet traffic on your way here.
No, definitely there is no traffic at this time of the day.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right. And also we'll be just sitting down right now with the rest of our panelists and we'll be introducing them in a moment. But yeah, so let's see what else we have here. NEC building, 37 years under construction. Well, members of Parliament smell a rat. Members of Parliament have called on the Auditor General, Nancy Gathungu, to conduct a special audit of ongoing construction at Mitihani House, which has been in progress for, guess what, 37 years. The lawmakers also want the past NEC chief executives held accountable for the billions that have been allocated to the project during their tenures. This was while debating a report by the Public Investments Committee on Governance and Education on the financial statements of 23 state corporations. The members of Parliament now threatening to withhold further allocations to the project until the money is accounted for and a clear roadmap to its completion is provided. And Mheshimiwa John, I mean, 37 years, a NEC building still under construction, and we're still demanding more money.
That's definitely a red flag. And I'm happy about what the PIC is doing about it. Someone needs to be held accountable, because that is a direct loss of public funds.
Right.
If a building has absorbed so much money and it is not yet in use, that shows you that there's something suspicious. Something is not going on right in that work.
All right.
And action needs to be taken.
Action needs to be taken, indeed. All right. And of course, we're now joined also as well by Justina Omai, 2022 presidential running mate. Good to see you. And of course, Nabi Nabwera Mheshimiwa from Lugari. Also good to see you this morning, Mheshimiwa. Maybe let me get from you, Bwana Nabi. NEC building, 37 years. This is quite something. Officials at the exams body accused of deliberately delaying its completion in order to benefit from corrupt dealings.
Thank you so much. Just for the benefit of the viewers, I think it's my Committee of Education where I serve.
Correct.
That flagged out this issue when we actually refused to allocate the money. From where I sit, Mitihani House is a conduit of theft. Big theft. For God's sake, if we look at the past 10 years, every year it gets money. And they ask for the same money the following year. So that's the right direction.
For the same project or just different?
The same project.
Right.
The same project. They will talk of a wing, they will talk of all sorts of things.
Because this 500 million is what they say they need to be able to finish this construction.
After we refused to give them in the Education Committee during budgeting, and we said we can't.
Right.
We can't allocate them any money. And we actually said, occupy it, if not, don't. If you think you can't occupy it, then don't. I mean, you can't build something forever. Yes.
Almost 4 decades.
Yes,
right.
we can't.
Justina, your thoughts?
37 years old, this building is older than me. It means there have been like 7 different parliament sittings. If you do the 5-year terms. So it means even the parliament was benefiting. What was their interest to allocate the same money over 37 years? So it goes to say that even our parliamentarians are failing us, whether these ones or the previous ones, they have failed us in terms of allocation of budgetary funds.
Right.
Yes.
So that's something we'll also be keeping a close eye on as well. But also, Ruto-Raila dialogue off to a cordial start, it says. This is captured on the 5th page of the DN. Both sides agreeing to form technical teams that will sit down and prepare documents on the agenda for the talks. This crisis talks between President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga, beginning on rather civil note and conciliatory note yesterday as the representatives agreed to form that technical team. The talks are being held and led by Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, who's representing the Azimio la Umoja and Kenya Coalition Party, and National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah for the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. The team saying the first session of the negotiations saw them agreeing on some of these issues, which include the technical teams that will sit down to prepare documents for the agenda, because we'll be having a conversation on this. Bwana Mheshimiwa Kagusha, just quickly, you know, in contrast to the strong statements that we've seen out there being made by politicians like yourself. What we saw yesterday was something rather civil, very cordial between these two representatives of the political divide. Did you expect that?
It's good. They are doing well. I mean, they have formed a technical committee to discuss about the agenda. And then next they will form a committee to discuss about the talks. And then we can hope that sometime maybe along the way they will start the talks, if at all. Politicians are people. They are friends. If you see me here with the Honorable Nabi, we are good friends. We take tea together. The problem comes maybe when, of course, people are pushing their side of the story out there. But when politicians are together, you'll never know that they even disagree in any way.
So what we hear outside there is more of politics, but what we're noticing here is what? Issues of governance and leadership?
That is it. And of course, you know, the media also falls in the same trap. They amplify what we say out there as if there was a very serious fight.
But do we not just report exactly what is said?
Yeah, and amplify, you know. The politicians are usually cordial when they are together, and they have no problems. But I can also tell you that when it comes to the crux of the matters, now the issue of the talks,
Right.
Probably that's where now the rubber will meet the road, because at this point in time, there's nothing on the table. I mean, you see, these guys have no agenda even. They have not agreed. And I'm sure there will be a team that will be pushing for an agenda that can be discussed there. Another team might be pushing for an agenda that cannot be discussed there. Another team might be pushed for an agenda that will need referendum. These ones will, I mean, so it's not going to be maybe as cordial as we move on, because some of the issues also which some of the people want to push there in that agenda cannot be discussed. For example, someone talks about inclusivity. Yeah. A government that has taken people from all walks of life, from all regions in this country. There is another group that comes to say they want inclusivity in government. But when they say inclusivity, they don't mean that we need someone from Luo Nyanza, for example, or from Western, because they are enough in government. They're just saying, we want you to take in our side of divide in your government.
Is that what they're saying? But what we have had is quite different. But we'll be getting into that conversation in a moment. I want us to just finish up on the paper, but just also just quick remarks as well. Let me begin with you, Mheshimiwa Nabi, then I'll get to Justina. Your initial thoughts of what transpired yesterday at the Bomas of Kenya on the dialogue matter.
I think I've been here before, and I'll still go back to, I think you are coming back to where I was. When I came here, when there was the first bipartisan, you remember I told you it will not go anywhere.
Right.
Until,
I think I remember you saying that, actually.
Until President Ruto and Raila decide exactly what they want. I'm not running away from that position. I've been in this political space for a while, from different angles. All Kenyans want a peaceful country. Every one of us want development. My brother Kagusha said something critical here. Politicians shock me at times, where in this space I am in. People go to the podium and say things, and you wonder whether they live in the same country you live in. We have also lived politics of gerrymandering and political deceit. My prayer is that Kalonzo Musyoka and Wani Ichung'wah would just realize that Kenya is above all of us. If they don't, we are still wasting time. As to from where I sit, I also don't want to believe, and Kagusha is here with me, I don't want to believe with the principles. The president and Raila did not discuss some agenda. All this, what you are seeing is what I call politricks. When you hear people talk on the podium, they will still have to go back and take we will go round, they will go back. Kalonzo will come back to Raila. Ichung'wah will go back to President Ruto and they will agree that, please, this is what you need to discuss there. So really, the question would be, how much time do you want to spend on these politics?
So you're saying this is a futile endeavor, Mheshimiwa?
From where I sit,
Yeah.
looking at the body language,
A futile
looking at the Kinakagusha and whatever, how we sit in there, I still will be proved wrong.
Okay, we'll come back to that.
And I agree with
Christina.
him.
A futile endeavor, you think? We started off, it looks, appeared we're starting off on a very good note.
But they'll end up crashing and fighting. We know, we've been in this country for long enough to know that the issues and the fights will continue until something is done. I want to remind Kenya Kwanza, because they're the ones who are headliners in this case. 2007, the president forced Raila Amolo Odinga to get something from Kibaki. So he has to realize now the handshake or the shoe is not in his leg. He doesn't have to have a handstand. Let him agree that whatever Raila wants, let him give Raila. Because there's a section of this country, and the majority, who are ordinary Kenyans, our bills are not paid for by government, we are not in parliament, we are not civil servants. All we want to see is that we can wake up in the morning, peacefully go look for our daily bread uninterrupted. So my prayer is that, because they need to cut to the chase, what does Raila want? Let him be given what he wants, as President Ruto pays for his karma of 2007, the handshake he forced Raila into Kibaki's government, because we need to move on. But it's important for Kenyans to realize, progressive politicians move with time. If they're telling us they're friends, why was it a problem not to use Article 256 or 257 in the National Assembly? Where were they bringing issues to us, the Kenyans, who are struggling to live? Their role is to influence policy, legislation, and frameworks. They are not doing that in Parliament. They are coming to give us the problems, forgetting that even we cannot afford a meal today. So I want Kenyans to realize that the two divides are not fair to anyone. They do not care about us. They just want to protect their space, and that is why they're just bringing politics. And then in the next 5 years, they'll come back and say, "Huyu mtu alifanya nisifanye kazi," and then the other one will blame the other one. Are Kenyans ready for that cycle? I think they're not.
All right. I think you've left it at a perfect note. When we come back, we will be picking up from that. But let's see what else we have here on the Daily Nation. On the 6th page, retired teachers will get pensions within 6 months, Cabinet Secretary tells senators. It will now just take just less than 6 months to process pensions for retired teachers. Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Mashogu announcing that before the Senate yesterday, saying his ministry has directed the Teacher Service Commission to ensure that once a teacher retires, his or her file is immediately processed and submitted to the Pensions Department at the National Treasury. Thereafter, it continues to explain that the processing of the payment of the dues should take between 4 and 5 months to be completed, which means that he says that we have asked the TSC that once a teacher retires, the file is sent as soon as possible for the payment process to begin. So this is something that is of interest, especially to teachers who have been waiting for their pension dues for quite some time. And, this has been quite a big row. But the Cabinet Secretary says now this will be a thing of the past with plans to fast-track this particular process. All right, let's see what else we have. Windfall for teachers, uniformed forces, civil servants in pay review. Teachers, police officers and the disciplined forces and workers in county governments are the biggest beneficiaries in the latest pay review by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, as they get increments that are higher than those of other public servants. Of this, which is 21.66 billion shillings allocated for salary reviews in the current financial year, a whopping 83.9% has been channeled to those particular 3 categories. So the teaching service allocated 9.6, uniformed and disciplined forces 4.5 billion, and county governments 4 billion shillings. SRC indicating that the review is meant to harmonize salaries across the public service to achieve equity and fairness, and also adjusting salaries in favor of the lowest earners in the national and county governments as well, while partially helping freeing salary increments for the highest earners, most of them in state cooperative operations and the secretariat staff in the commission and independent offices as well. Mheshimiwa Kagushia, just to get your thoughts as well on this. I mean, so this is what we have received so far, the SRC, which is now harmonizing the, the salaries and the ZAT review. We have these three categories, which include the teacher service as well as the uniformed officers and disciplined forces and county governments taking a huge share of these salaries. Is a good move?
Well, I think what we need to do is to address the issue of salaries for the lower cadres. We have the uniformed services, we have the teachers, and we have all these other civil servants who are in the lower cadres of government. Those ones have had their salaries not increased for a long time. And what we are happy about is that this move is coming off the CBA arrangements, off the unionism that we have had before, that for the first time we have a government that is ready and willing to adjust salaries of civil servants without agitation from the unions. And I think that's a good thing, that government need to also realize that there are changes in terms of cost of living and such. And so that generally prompts government to look at the salaries of its own civil servants. But I would also want to advise SRC, as much as they do that, there are those higher paid cadres, like members of parliament, like the president, like the deputy president, like the cabinet secretaries. There's a feeling, and really it's not a feeling, it's a fact, that they are already sufficiently remunerated. And for that reason then, there's no need to address that cadre in terms of salary raise. Maybe the cadre that they would need to look at are the members of county assembly. I have been a speaker for 5 years in Nyeri County, and I know for sure members of county assembly do get really meager salary comparing to the work they do. And I know there has been efforts to harmonize that. I know there's quite a bit of agitation from that political side. You know, when we started, there was a feeling that members of county assembly maybe should be paid something a little bit higher. But what they get is not as much as what they do, and also considering the kind of interactions they have with the people on the grassroots. So
those salaries would fall under the county government's allocation, right?
Yes, they would fall under that. But again, the review for members of county assembly probably need to be a little bit more focused on, so that they are enabled to perform their duties, as they also do the same for lower cadres of members of civil service. So that would be my opinion, because if you look at members of National Assembly, I think what they're taking home is fairly okay. Never mind the exposures they have with the interactions with the grassroots. Yeah, but in terms of salary, if you look at what they are getting, compare with other cadres, I should think it is sufficient. And personally, I have offered that in the past. I have offered that I wouldn't be going for a salary increment. I would rather that salary increment is given to a police officer who I am with on a daily basis, and I can see their struggles. The police officers, you can see their daily struggles in terms of their housing, in terms of other amenities that they don't have. So those are the areas where I think seriously the government need to address and need to put its effort in. And now, because Parliament is a budget-making institution, we will be addressing some of those issues. I know for now, we did not take very good cognizance of these budget raises in terms of salaries. But I'm sure as we are moving into the supplementary budget, some of those things will be addressed. But as we are addressing, I would also want to ask the budget committee and also other committees that are concerned to put more money where it is supposed to go, where we have lower cadres of staff.
All right.
Yeah.
Justina?
I want to remind them that it's good they're getting salary increment, but 70% of this economy is informal. So whatever they do for the salaries they're getting, they have to make life easier for the 70% who are not going to get the salaries. So if you're a policeman, make life easier for the general public. If you're an MP, make policies that are making sense. If you're a nurse, you know. So these salaries are coming, yes, to enable you to perform. Kindly make sure that your duties are performed in a way that we feel that life is easier for the ordinary citizen.
All right. Mheshimiwa Nabii?
I want to make two comments, then comment on something about the Minister for Education and retirement, because he basically was lying.
Or the teachers.
Yeah,
right.
he was lying. He didn't have facts. He doesn't seem to know what he's talking about. The country made a decision in the 2010 Constitution that because of the manner the country was managing a distorted wage bill, we therefore needed an independent commission. So as much as Kagusha would want to argue from a political populist point of view, we already made a decision and bestowed the power to review salary into a professional independent commission. There are compensatory factors that they talk about. And if you look at the way the arguments here, they are talking about having done an evaluation, looking at what job A does as opposed to job B does. Now, we cannot then therefore become so subjective and decide that we now today are allocating 10 billion to salaries, 5 billion to salaries. We must leave the Constitution. And if we give power to these people, as it is in this Constitution, allow them to work. Please. We cannot one day here, we say we want a Constitution, on the other one, we don't want a Constitution. So let them muddle and give us a way forward. My second point is on what you read on page 6.
The Cabinet Secretary for Education?
First, the question was misdirected. Pensions in the country is managed by Treasury. The problem is not TSC, never. I serve in the Education Committee. Please, as we are talking now, we have people who have retired 2 years down the line, they haven't gotten their pension. As we are talking now. 1.5 years, they haven't gotten their pension. What is the problem? If you look at the answer, the thing he's talking here is so subjective, not reasoned out. I've always said the CS for Education is getting a raw deal from the technocrats. They are not preparing him well. And if they are preparing him well, he doesn't take time to go through it. If I were him, this is what I would do. I would request the Cabinet Treasury to come and deal with this thing. Because the animal is in the Pensions Department of Treasury. How come a file that left TSC 1.5 years ago has not been paid? And if you read here, you don't see what he's saying. How he's going to deal with the bureaucracy.
He just says he's going to fast-track the process, perhaps to have a conversation with his counterpart within the National Treasury.
Can I tell you something?
Right.
I was following a pension of a teacher called Mwalimu Wamando. He taught me way back in primary, many years ago. You know, the file was in Treasury. And I understood the pensions officers, they were saying there was inadequate budget. We can't pay. And this does not, by the way, only affect this. Even policemen are having problems. Who retired, they're having problems. So that's why I'm saying the Pensions Department of Treasury must address this issue in terms of 3 things. 1, the system they are using to develop the payment process. Number 2, at what time, why don't they foresee what is required per year in terms of pension so that they come to budget, to Parliament to provide enough money for them.
You have the TSC boss who appeared before Parliament, that's the Senate.
He appeared before my committee.
Yes, what did she say? That delays are occasioned by several factors such as delays to secure proper documentation from the retirees, or certain cases where retirees and beneficiaries take long to submit the documents for processing to unlock the payments.
And you remember we rejected that answer? Yes, we rejected it because we gave you a list of pensioners whose documents had been lying there and they were not processed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is something we'll also be having a keen eye on as well. Let me just wind up on the paper now, then we'll get into our conversation.
Point out that
yes.
you know, Honorable Nabi has cast aspersions as to my contribution. and baptized
I did.
my contribution as a mere populist statement. And it's important for me to have a right of reply on that.
All
and
right.
say that it's not a populist statement. And that is my opinion. And that is my contribution. And what we need to note is that every institution, whether independent or not, is subject to Article 10 of the Constitution on public participation, accountability, transparency, and of course you also have to make policies that make sense. And for you to be able to do that, you need to consult the stakeholders. I have not seen an SRC clinic at the Parliament or any form of a meeting with us as parliamentarians on matters to do with salaries. Neither have I seen any memorandum coming from the National Assembly in terms of our salaries. And so when I say there's need for consultations, public participation, and we also need to be practical and realistic about what decisions we are taking. I mean, that can't be populist. That's a fact of, that's a statement of fact.
All right.
And so SRC needed to do that. I mean, I'm still the one who is saying members of county assembly who are politicians, their salaries need to be looked at.
All right.
Because I know for sure they have a challenge. I'm not talking about the speakers, because I know the speakers have had their salaries relooked at severally. Now I think they have a better placement in terms of what they do versus what they get. But members of county assembly, I know for sure, have a challenge in that regard. So this is a statement of fact. It's something that really need to be looked at. I mean,
through your own experience,
that is it.
An opinion that you have.
Yeah, that is it. And then you see it is looking across. I'm looking at the political class. I can tell you. I'm looking at also the civil service.
All right.
Yeah, so it's not a populist statement at all.
Okay.
It's something that we need to address. It's something that SRC need to pick. And in future, they need to also consult us, you get? Because we also as parliamentarians, as much as we want to a good pay, we also don't need to be seen as if we want to take home everything from the normal Kenyans. And I also dare say, in terms of the common mwananchi, the Wanjiko, my sister here said that we also need to address that. A lot is going into place. I mean, it is being done in terms of addressing the business environment, in terms of addressing the cost of living, in terms of addressing how Kenyans are living. And once we are once we go full the cycle in terms of the interventions that the government is putting in place, Kenyans will start understanding. I know, for example, now the civil servants are up in arms about the issue of making contribution here and there, especially in the finance bill. But again, they do not have the bigger picture. Yeah, so they made a bit of noise, and I'm sure now they can say, okay, so at least we are still being addressed, or our issues are still being looked at in this manner. Same way, I would also want to tell the Juakale people and people who are in the informal sector, who are the majority, I dare say, as my sister here has said, their issues are also being looked at. There are several interventions that have been put in place, and once they bear fruits, for sure, our countrymen will realize that there's a government that cares. They will realize that indeed there was something in the offing. And for that reason, they will be happy about that.
All right, and which boils down to the whole conversation.
Just a minute. We can't allow Kagusha to get away with murder.
I was giving you an opportunity because we have to take a break, but yes, kindly finish up your comments so that we can get a...
The move of the government relooking at the salaries of the civil servants has a ripple effect at the same time.
All right.
Because it also prompts the private sector also to relook at the salaries of their staff, Otherwise, government becomes more attractive, and then you may have also quite a number of very experienced people who are serving in the corporate or actually moving to government, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. But again, this move will also prompt the private sector to also increase the salaries. And what we also need to look at is the private sector and the corporate also need to look at some of the huge profits they make and that they announce every other year.
Okay.
They need to use part of that profit to look at the staff welfare.
All right, let's hear from Mheshimiwa Nabii. You wanted to respond to some of those things that he said, then we'll take a break.
My brother Kagusha veers off from my submission. And my submission is basic. He's also not being honest.
How so?
But I'm going to make him...
Why is Nabi casting so much aspersion
no, I want
my
to,
contribution?
When you say that SRC has never met Parliament, when we went to Parliament and we were doing orientation, we insisted we wanted to meet SRC. And I think he must have missed an explanation. You know, when we do job evaluation, it is periodic. You can't be doing it every other day. It is based on a period of time as agreed by the scheme you are using. So, all I'm saying is that you cannot have an institution and you want to micromanage that institution. Let's allow that institution to function. That's what constitutionalism is all about. Secondly, as much as Kagusha wants to give us very good promise and very good sales, the usual Kenya Kwanza sales, he should be telling us why the dollar as of yesterday was 150. If you are telling us the economy is improving, you should be telling me why the dollar is 150. He should be telling me why 11 companies in 2 months have closed down. He should be telling me that. That things are getting better when companies are closing down. He should be telling me why, if the things are getting better, I'm paying more for electricity. And why electricity is becoming more unstable than ever before. Thank you.
All right.
Yes,
Justina.
The role of government is not to create jobs, it's
Yes.
to create a conducive environment for
Correct.
business to thrive.
Correct.
So when we are told that now we are going to add salaries, remember salaries will chase inflation. So what the conversation we should be having here is that if it is here NTV we are today, what are your revenue budget or your revenue lines? Advertisement. Are you getting the advertisements you used to get? No, because companies have shut down.
Yes.
People do not have the money to buy adverts. So they are challenged not to tell us that salaries. No, we want to hear that an ordinary mama mboga or a mtu wa boda boda is not complaining that the fuel used to use to a certain stage has gone up.
Right.
That when mama mboga or mtu wa boda boda wants to feel that this government has cushioned me, but they are not doing that. Instead, they are doing campaigns. Yet we are seeing that there is inadequate budget even in TSC. Teachers cannot be paid their pension. So this government is failing us. Additionally, even the opposition is failing us because they are helping government to do campaigns wakwe kwa ground.
Okay, let's take a quick break. We're going to be back and we'll continue with this conversation and wind up on the paper as we get to hear some of those replies from some of those sentiments that have been made right now. All right, MLive is the hashtag we're using this morning. Stay with us.
Next time on Twende, we start a new adventure to reflect on the weather. We are going to a cold place.
Okay, I get it. More tea. Lakini watu wa Western hawaja complain. Na kama hawaja complain basi una complain nini? Here we are with tea.
The waters are teeming with fish and the forests have elephants.
Unajua hapa, the biggest animal is an elephant. So the advantage also of going in a group ni most likely si wewe utashikwa. Ni mwingine. Guys, quiet. This is what you call moo. Sorry.
The tracks are overgrown with vegetation and I feel like an early explorer.
Imagine hapa kukinyesha.
We are so lucky. Leo imeanza kunyesha.
And we visit the tallest waterfall I have ever been to.
Ndio hiyo. Na ndio hapa basi nimekuja nikufahamishe na nikuambie live and direct. Usiwahi amini binadamu. Mwanzo waliokuambia hapa basi bila shaka pale uwachague maisha itakuwa rahisi. Ndio hiyo, maisha imekuwa ngumu zaidi. Waliokuambia hapa basi bila shaka pale usili na usikunywe, ujifunge kama una Yesu na macho. Basi ndio huyo wewe umekauka, umekufa. Ai, mwishowe kaenda jehanamu. Waliokuambia hapa basi watumie fea, wameshaikula na hawakukuja. Waliokuambia hapa basi bila shaka pale
To get stories ajaba, dial star 811 star 851 hash.
Skiza na Nation.
Welcome to the home of the latest gospel hits,
amazing Bible teachings,
great conversations,
in studio and live on location shows.
As are we crossing over? Jesus taking over.
all this under one show, and that is
Me tell you real things, he said,
That airs this and every Sunday from 11:30 to 1 p.m. only on NTV.
yes, sir.
From Sunday to Sunday. Matukio makuu ya nchi, sio bungeni, sio wizarani. Kigodani, uongozi na upigia upatu. Kila Jumatatu. Mimi ni Frederick Mwitiriri na hii ni NTV.
All right, welcome back to the program on AM Live this morning on NTV. It's just 56 minutes past 6 a.m. And just to wind up, let me give you just a quick overview as well. It was just headlines of what else is captured within the DM, so you can get that paper for yourself. Sudi, Karauri, Arama among 15 members of parliament who are yet to utter a word in the House. They're active and vocal at religious gatherings, political rallies and press conferences. But the silence in Parliament, where they represent their constituents, is deafening. This is according to the first scorecard for the 13th Parliament released by Mzalendo Trust. These 15 members of Parliament have never uttered a word on the floor of the House for 1 year, actually 11 months in office now. This is a concern given that some of them were also poorly ranked in previous scorecards during the 12th Parliament for their lack of participation, with not a single contribution attributed to them. These are some of the faces you can see there. We gave you a breakdown of those of that particular report and the members of Parliament who have been captured there. Some of those who are active, those who have never uttered a single word. We also captured the young people in the National Assembly and the Senate as well as the women and how they have performed. Justina, when you're looking at this, just because I have to get you, because you have members of Parliament here, but let me begin with you. You have these members of Parliament who are ranking quite poorly, and in essence what the report was is basically they have never uttered a single word in plenary. So I don't know, there's a lot of work that happens within the committee stage, but anyway, when it comes to this, these members of Parliament you know, are yet to ever say anything in the House. Does it mean that they're poor performers, or where do you draw the line?
Number one, it goes to what motivated them to go into Parliament. Or the economy is doing so badly that politicians are thinking, or someone who thinks fast is saying, let me go into Parliament, let me earn a salary from government to hedge myself. So they're forgetting you're there to make life easier through policies and legislation. Additionally, we have been going on a downward spiral of politicians and members of Parliament. From, I think, 2013, we've had the worst, because they don't tell you what I'm doing. Kawusha will say, this is what I'm doing. Or Nabi will tell, this is what I'm doing. Kawusha will say, the president is doing. Can you tell us what you're doing? Nabi, tell us what you're doing. So I think the problem is that we are held by political parties. You're not allowed to be independent-minded. And that is the role of Parliament. So I think these ones are just saying, let me just eat my salary, because the economy is bad out here, I'll sort myself. Tragically, even the president is making this country go into campaign mode. Instead of them delivering, I want to remind Kenyans that once you win a seat, you move into no delivery through policies, legislations, and frameworks. But because you want to protect your ground, how I wish they'd protect their ground through delivery. Right. What is the ease of going to hospital? Am I buying fuel affordably? Am I living well? Is cost of unga down? That is what we want to see, the delivery as an ordinary Kenyan who is not benefiting from salaries.
Right.
But unfortunately, they are focusing on protecting their ground through mobilization. And I saw so much money was spent in mobilizing people in Mount Kenya. Sadly, opening projects that were launched by Uhuru Kenyatta. So it is even duplication of costs. They're telling us tie your belts, and they're not tying. And I want to declare here, I am neither in Azimio Kenya Kwanza. My role is to represent the 8 million Kenyans who said, we don't want to be involved in this politics. We want a clean slate.
All right. Nabi.
I think my sister here has said something maybe close to the truth. That really, what is the motivation for some of us getting into politics? I also want to say that this is one side of the coin. That the other side of the coin would be the team that has presented for us the performance index for members of parliament should also have looked at how members of parliament function in committees. And I'm not afraid to say here, you will even be shocked. In committees, we have absentee members. I mean, it's a reality. You saw the other day the speaker on the floor of the House.
For the public petitions
yes,
committee,
saying
right?
This committee should be restructured. That is frustration. A whole speaker feels he's being frustrated because he can't move parliament forward because there's backlog of work in one committee. The third issue about this participation, and I want to say this with a lot of honesty, we made a very big mistake. And I'm sure even if when we are redefining the qualifications of a member of parliament, people said we just leave, we only need an ID. Unfortunately, the documents of government are represented in English. All I'm yet to see. We have not developed it to Swahili like in Tanzania. Now, if you can't comprehend a financial statement, assuming we are all members of parliament, the three of us, Kagusha comprehends, Madam comprehends, then they present a financial statement and I do not have no idea. Why would I sit in parliament? To just sit there and do what? For sure, Kenyans must come to reality. There are certain things, they look off the way, but they help. I was explaining, and my brother Kagusha here, he come with me, we come from the county government system. Okay? There are many county governments in the first term when we went there, and we will get a person calling himself a chief accountant or a principal accountant, and he has not entered into a class of accounting. And that's why you had all those problems. He has never entered a class of accounting. Surely, how do you be a principal accountant? So, Kagusha as a speaker is forced to now even to do accounting and tell him, but this one doesn't make sense. What if Kagusha is not knowledgeable? What would happen? He will pass things that don't work. So really, I sympathize with the situation, but that's where we are.
That is the reality.
That's the reality.
There is no escaping it.
That's the reality.
All right.
Yeah. It's either I've spoken, I can, and I've spoken because I understand what I'm speaking to, but, or I've not spoken because now, if Kagusha is speaking so much English, you had one time,
well, do you feel like
sasa mnaongea tu Kiingereza mingi hapa, but what do you do? How do I, if I'm looking at a bill, like in the education committee, we are processing quite a lot of bills because of the changes that have happened. Yeah. You can imagine if I am of humble education and I'm in education committee and we have all those, the report is 300 pages. What will I contribute?
Okay. Mheshimiwa Kagushia, a fair assessment of Mzalendo Trust in terms of those who speak in plenary, but also a disclaimer is they were not ranking members of parliament, those within the speaker's panel, the House leadership, because they're given more opportunity to speak. However, we still have members of parliament who have never risen their hand to say, let me say something.
Maybe the speaker never caught their eyes. Or maybe maybe they never caught the speaker's eye or the speaker's attention. But let me say the public deserves the leaders whom they get. They elect them.
Yeah.
Mzalendo Trust has been very vocal in terms of exposing the kind of work that is done in Parliament.
Correct.
They have done these reports consistently. And clearly some of the members of National Assembly, as you can see, have appeared in these reports every other day, every other time.
We've seen some of them in the 12th Parliament as well.
That is it. And even some of them, even in the 11th Parliament, they were there, never uttered a word. And the members of public still re-elect them.
So does that speak about the electorate?
Yeah, so...
The electorate?
The electorate are interesting. Yeah,
that's the right.
So are we going to accuse the electorate, or is it just the system of politics that we have?
You see, this is not an accusation.
Right.
Again, it's a statement of fact.
Okay.
I'm just saying these reports have been there, isn't it?
True.
And members of public still re-elect those people.
Right.
You get? So could be members of public in those areas are not either understanding, what role of a parliamentarian is, and the reason why a parliamentarian need to also be active on the floor of the House, or they are looking at other considerations other than their contribution in the House. Because to me, a member of National Assembly or County Assembly who does not make contribution on the floor of the House is basically shortchanging their electorate. Are you getting? And why do they not make contributions? Some of them are just not available. Some of the members would appear and disappear into their businesses. Are you getting? And
it's unfortunate we hear reports of members of parliament who sit in the lobbies even when bills are being debated on the floor of the House, and you only see a huge number of members of parliament within the House during plenary when it is a matter of national, something really big, like for example the finance bill that was being debated. But when it comes to the other bills, and it can be something as important as water and sanitation that would affect someone's own constituency, and you will never find them within the House.
It's unfortunate, and that's what we are calling out. And these are our colleagues, they are our friends, and ordinarily we should show much respect to them as much because they are our colleagues. But again, we also know they are members of National Assembly who should change their electorate because they are busy in business, they are busy in other things, and they appear only in Parliament for PR purposes, or even for so that they are not disqualified or they are not recalled. If you don't appear 8 times consecutively, definitely the speaker can declare you a seat vacant according to our standing orders. So some of the members will appear technically so that they do not face the law. So that's very wrong, and we want to call out that also and ask members of National Assembly to definitely get interested in what is happening in Parliament.
All right.
And I concur with my brother here, Nabi, that indeed we need to also address the issue of qualification of a member of National Assembly. You can't just appear in National Assembly holding your ID only. Because the quality of leadership a country gets determines a lot where the country goes.
Very interestingly, in the numbers as well, and let me get to Justina now, in the numbers as well, we saw many of those who were captured in that report were also nominated members of parliament. So you can imagine these are members of parliament who've been nominated by political parties to represent us as well.
So it also questions our meritocracy. If you're qualified, they see you maybe as a threat, they want to give someone who is going to go with the wind. Additionally, I need to add something on the petitions committee. I took a petition to decriminalize industrial hemp, or katani in Kiswahili, as a raw material. I've never gotten feedback. So when I saw the report on the newspaper, I was like, that explains it. But we need to realize in this country that no one is the owner of knowledge. Sometimes the innovations will come through even a petition. So there's need even to shorten the cycle. A petition goes through the petition committee. Additionally, I want to tell members of parliament that they're the ones who allocate funds to like IEBC. Chebukati for the longest time complained that we don't even have money for civic education. We don't have money for this. Why is the National Assembly not giving them the money that they can come and teach Kenyans to understand that it's not just about kujenga barabara. Even now when we have policies or legislations, I need my input. Why don't politicians want Kenyans to know what is happening? They thrive on the ignorance of the masses. Again, the Kenyans will see that kuchafua ground is the money you bring. That is why you're seeing Kenya Kwanza showing us photos that the president had numbers and people came to listen to him. Why were they even coming to listen to him? In an ideal society where systems are working, where business is working, the president would have done a door-to-door, go to see people in their stores in the market, instead of calling them somewhere to talk to them. So it means they are failing us in terms of growing the economy, they are failing us in terms of unemployment. And these are the same people who are saying they are youths who are supposed to influence the future policy. So I challenge Kenyans that even when you look at someone, when you're looking at a leader, Kibaki left us at a point where we are at 82% of illiteracy rate. So I wonder why in politics we become illiterate, but other things we are very quick to be literate. So it's a challenge to the Kenyans. Shun big money spent in politics.
All right, I get to you, Mheshimiwa Nabii. Allow me to move forward from this, right?
On the issue of
let me get Mheshimiwa Nabii, then I get to you, John. Okay. All right.
I want to add my voice to...
But very briefly, please.
Yes, to what Kagusha said. I am in the political space. I can tell you, madam, I agree entirely with Honorable Kagusha. The people deserve the leaders they choose. For God's sake. Really, in the 21st going to the 22nd century, you must have some basic, qualification, minimum requirement for really for a leader in this country. You have seen this country, you walk in court accused of having failed company A, company B, company C. You have a criminal case going and you come, use the same money. The same money, which is under question, and you are elected, my friend. So you spend all the time.
Does qualification equate to academic qualification?
No, all round. What is a good leader? What we call a leadership spectrum. Okay? Then you spend all the time. When Kagusha and Nabii are busy in committees and in parliament, you are in the corridors of the courts trying to influence this decision of the court, trying to defend yourself, trying to see how the audit report can be changed. So the people must also be called out. The voter must also be called out. They want parliament to perform. But
who are they electing to parliament?
To perform.
Right.
That's the question.
Okay. Mheshimiwa John, very quickly as well.
Yeah, I know Justina has referred to the issue of the engagement of the president, and indeed any other political leader with the people. And maybe I would want to advise Justina, one of the reasons why maybe they had a problem in their coalition with what did you call him again? Wajakoya. One of the reasons why they probably were not making as much progress in terms of their presidential bid is because of lack of understanding of how the engagement with the public ought to be. I can tell you this, when Kenyans or when people elect you as a leader, one of the expectations is that from time to time you will be engaging them. Engaging them in terms of explaining to them your policies, explaining to them what you're doing, and as much as possible, interacting with them, even just being there with you and seeing you and feeling you. And
so that is what was President William Ruto doing in Mount Kenya,
interacting with not only in Mount Kenya. I know the one for Mount Kenya. I know the one for Mount Kenya has gotten a lot of attention from everyone. But I also want to remind you that before Mount Kenya, he was in Coast for a week. Are you getting? Doing the same thing. And if my brother Nabii here doesn't go to his constituency and engage people, call them out. I mean, call them to meetings, attend to where they are, interact with them. If he doesn't do that, his people will have a very serious problem with him. Because any political leader, you are not a corporate leader. You are elected to lead people wherever they are. And you must go to them. And in fact, what the people will tell you, when you are looking for votes, you came looking for us. So now when you got power, you disappeared. That you're saying you are working.
Which has been
people will not appreciate
quite a
that
big
work.
issue, right?
And Justina here says that what the president need to do is to do door to door, is go talking to people in stalls, in markets and such. Maybe she might have missed a good bit of the president's tour to Mashinani. I would want to tell her, on Monday, after we launched a road, you would call this politics, whatever you want to call it, but in Mukurweini, on a Monday at 8 a.m., we had people gathered waiting to have their road launched by the president. In numbers, about 6,000 people gathered waiting for him. And by around 10 a.m., the president did come to Mukurweini, Gumba in Carriera Primary School ground, and opened a road that is going to serve the people of Mukurweini. 45 kilometers road that is going to be done. Never launched by any other person. He launched it. Now, that road is going to be done.
Okay.
People of Mukurweini are going to benefit from that. From there, we went to a place called Karundu.
We have to move forward, right?
Yeah.
So we saw what exactly.
Let me point out this. I just want to put you a picture. I just want to give you a picture of what was happening.
Yes, we did see the
when we were in Karundu area, the president got off his car and had interaction with people at the milk selling shed, and quite a bit of interaction. From there, he went and found another, guys selling milk in a truck. He got out of his car, went and had an interaction with them. And he kept that interaction throughout his tour. I'm sure you must have seen those videos circulating.
Okay.
And so, that kind of engagement.
So for you,
with the people,
this is basically a public engagement that the president takes to take a look at. Okay.
And it's development oriented.
All right.
I mean, the kind of development that the president did start in Mukurweini this week alone
was engaging the people.
Is probably sufficient to push our constituency for another several years, especially with the kind of projects.
I mean, so it has nothing to do that you already have. It has nothing to do with the assertion that. Can we move forward now? We'll come back to that conversation, Allow me to take a.
There's something very serious here, very, very serious, and I would not come here and allow some of the things being said here to go on unchallenged. Justina has given us a challenge as leadership, and the challenge is basic. That what is our development mantra? And my answer, my reply to it, in responding to what Honorable Kagusha is saying, is that Kibaki left a simple template. Simple. The simplest template of development. What the coalition of Kinagagusha have done, they have taken us back to before 2002, where people coalesce around the president for them to get development, purported development.
So in your session, that's what...
Just let me tell you, between Friday, last week, and yesterday, you would not get government officials, senior government officials in Nairobi to attend to anything because they have all followed the president. They're moving around in launching Uhuru's projects, which is okay. A government is a perpetual institution. It has been completed during this time. He will have to launch it if he must be. But we are getting out of what we need to do. Allow government to function. By the way,
isn't that part of what Mheshimiwa
no.
is saying?
They are not allowing government to
functioning by the president engaging with
they are stifling government. For God's sake, the approach Kenya Kwanza is taking is stifling. I've always asked this question. Even this week, our people of Kakamega are being invited to stay. So the question I'm asking, if I am a member of parliament in Lugari, and I don't go to State House, would I get development?
Can we do this? Allow me to have a report.
Nabi pretends not to understand how government works. If the president is going to launch a road, like now when he launched the road in Mukurweini.
Allow me to do this. There's a report that Melita Oletenges did prepare exactly a year ago. Allow me, we'll come back to that. A year ago, Kenyans went to the polls, new leaders were elected and others were shown the door. But 1 year down the road, we see the political atmosphere is still quite charged. Can we have that report and then we come back and continue this conversation? All right.
From being close allies in their heydays as Pentagon co-principals in the ODM party, to now being on opposing sides, it hasn't escaped them that they know each other's cards too well.
Huyu Ruto huyo nimefanya naye kazi kwa muda mrefu sana. Yeye ananijua mimi. Kwa hiyo sasa ile akipiga kelele huko mimi naangalia tu. Najua atapoa.
Na mimi pia namjua sana. Na nimemsoma sana. Ndio nilimshinda akiwa na uhuru. Namjua sana. Na kwa sababu mimi namjua sana, najua ataendesha hii mambo yake pia hii yote mpaka na maandamano, lakini mimi najua itaishia wapi.
But even with that knowledge, the wall between the two has been difficult to move around 1 year since Kenyans went to vote. The impasse between Raila Odinga and William Ruto has thrown the country into a whirlwind.
The opposition has been having moving targets, basically to remain relevant after last year's elections. First of all, it was IEBC and the fact that they were calling for the servers to be opened, casting aspersions on the integrity of the electoral results.
If we were to count promises, they're doing very well. But in terms of the reality, there's very little to take home, unless you're counting the Uhuru projects they're relaunching. If you count those, we are doing very well.
The unending political barbs have led to the failed bipartisan talks, but a second attempt is in the works. The talks, according to Azimio, should be centered on the high cost of living, audit of the 2022 presidential election results, and reconstitution of the IEBC. The standoff, however, continues to hurt the economy.
It has caused a bit of disruption. It has set us back quite a bit as a country. Experts say that we lose, when we have those sort of demonstrations, we lose close to 2 billion shillings.
So there is definitely a case to be made for the creation of the office of leader opposition. Similarly, there is a case to be made for the creation of office of prime minister, simply because we have an issue of interaction between the cabinet and parliament.
President William Ruto has prioritized the Hustler Fund, affordable housing, among other projects. But political proponents argue he is carrying forward his predecessor's plan while going back on his word on a hustler's government.
I think it's a bit simplistic to expect that you'll pick a hustler, say like a border operator off the streets, and make him a cabinet secretary. Or a PS for that matter. Some of those positions require a level of expertise.
1 year since Kenyans went to the ballot, a stalemate between President William Ruto and Raila Odinga has hit the headlines, plunging Kenyans into what seems like a bottomless chasm. Amidst the hue and cry by the citizenry, they hope that what they were promised shall be delivered. Melita Oletenges, NTV, Nairobi.
All right, thanks, Melita. And come today on the Standard, I think, if we can say, on the 9th of August 2022, while Wanjiku was casting her vote, the cost of living was what was featuring. On the 9th of August, they're still pointing fingers on the cost of living between the two sides of politics. On the Daily Nation, however, there is a second round of conversation that is happening at the Bomas of Kenya. And here, as you pass through to enter the Bomas of Kenya, you have to be checked that no hardline positions beyond this point. But you would be excused if you're new in the country to, believe that perhaps there's an election around the corner. The political temperature in the country is highly charged at this point, 1 year after the election. Justina, when you're looking at that,
I think you cut me short, huh?
Yes, all right.
Yeah,
you wanted to finish up on that point. All right,
yeah,
let's do that.
I was just explaining to Nabi how government works. When the president is going to launch a project, like he did in Mukurweini this week on Monday, he was launching a road. We had the CS in charge of roads and all the departmental, I mean the Kera head and the PS and also the regional manager for Kera. So those key government officials in that department were there. And I can tell you immediately after the president was done with that, all of them were back to Nairobi to carry on with their work. When we went to Odaya, for example, we were doing water. We had Alice Wahome there. And immediately after we were done with that, we went to Teto again on water issues. And once we were done with that, she went again back to Nairobi to continue with her work. And that is how government works. And the issue of talking about Uhuru's projects is a propaganda that is being used by Azimio and ODM for that matter. Why do I say this? The road in Mukurweini, you want to call it an Uhuru project. Okay. That road was given to us or was advertised and tendered in year 2018. And by year 2019, the road started. Only out of 45 kilometers, only 3 kilometers were done. Are you getting? For a whopping 5 years. And the money to do that road had been borrowed, was borrowed from China. The money was never used on that road. Where the money went, no one knows. Are you getting? For 5 good years, that road was never done.
Okay.
Now, you want to call it Uhuru project? Okay. But now, here I am. I'm a new member of parliament. On my election, I promised that even though this road was never done, I am going to look for funds to do the road. Now, I have managed to get the funds. And additionally, I have managed to get the president to come now and help me launch this road. Now, Nabi, you want to call this Uhuru project?
I will
Uhuru project for 5 years, 6 years, that was never done. And now we have it done today. You know, I'm talking about...
So you're saying this is how government works? Yes, Justina,
so
let's hear from you. Yes.
What was the purpose of removing people from Githurum market for the president to launch and then they go back? The market was open. Needless to say, what does the law say? You're told IBC declares an election 3 months to the election. That is the time you're supposed to do your campaigns after we know who are the candidates, after IBC has done everything. 3 months to 48 hours. After that, you've won the seat, you go into delivery. Delivery of 5 years. When you look at the functions of the president, I don't see anywhere engaging in the constitution. We are told once in a year to report the progress on Article 10. What is Article 10? Human dignity, equity, and all those things Kenyans can read. What are we saying?
Just read
when
them.
you okay, fine. The role of Article 10 says.
Just read Article 10.
Article 10, there is A, B, and C. So I'm going to go on the issue now. The question of the day is high cost of living. That is on the issue of equity, social justice, inclusiveness, and human rights. What are we saying? When you tell us that they have read B, part B,
accountability,
that is part C. Kenyans will read.
So you are reading,
but what I'm trying to say, C says
good
governance.
Yes, good governance.
Good integrity, transparency, and accountability. In a country where we are being
public
told
participation.
Sustainable development, participation, I think, is in A. What I'm trying to say is this, that the cost of living in this country is not allowing government to live the way they have been living. They need to also be different in how they organize or do their campaigns. Look at the cost of fuel. If all of them, their fuels paid for taxpayers, go to Sagana, keep on following the president here and there.
So let me ask you this. Yes. What is wrong in the president going to the residents, the people who voted for him, and telling them, look, this is where we are in terms of what we promised, these are the pledges we made, and this is how far we've gone?
But the problem is, he's not telling us that. He's telling us about handshake. We don't want to hear that. We want to feel the economy. Let me tell you, Zainab, wait. We want to feel the economy the way we felt during Kibaki's time. We rarely saw him. We saw that he was cutting costs and spending. The president is spending so much money on logistics to go and campaign again for a seat he already has. He's trying to secure his 2027 vote. How I wish he was going to secure it through delivery, that I can go to hospital and get medicine, because he's looking at how counties and devolution are dispensing medicine.
I can get my pension if I retire. The education system, like look now, the university students are complaining that we are not going to afford to go to university, yet we got to get the best grades. So those are the things we need to see direction in him, making life easier, not campaigning and saying that, oh, walitudharau. You know, they're still there saying wanataka handshake. The ordinary Kenyan whose bills are not paid for by the government, and that goes to say the president to the MCA. Those people have their bills paid by government. No, what about 80% of Kenyans who have no salaries? Are they taking care of them? That's the question.
When we come to shows like this,
can I allow him to respond and then get to you?
Really, when we come to shows like this, I think it's only fair that we disengage emotions from our contribution and stay a little bit more on facts.
Okay.
I think if for example, Justina has not listened to the pronouncements by the president when he was on the development tour in Nyeri, if she did not listen, I think it's not right for her to make a contribution to that issue. Because if you listen to the president, for example,
But it is her opinion that this is more of a campaign by the president.
This is not an issue of even opinion. This is not even an issue of opinion. This is an issue of fact. I mean, what did the president say from the first engagement in Mukurweini, for example, on Monday, to the last engagement in, let's say, like yesterday? Even in Sagana, president took time, my sister. She took time to explain to the public about government policies. He took time to explain to them about what he's doing about roads. He took time to explain to them what he's doing about digital superhighway. He took time to explain to them how.
But she's asking, is that the role of the president itself?
Kenyans are saying there's high cost of living.
Why shouldn't the president engage with the people and explain to them about government policy? And remember, we are on a time where there's so much misinformation, and the misinformation is not only coming from the gutter press and also from the social media, it's also coming in from the mainstream media. A lot of misinformation. And so
I want you to hold on to that thought. I want you to hold on to that thought, Mheshimiwa Nabii. No. We'll come back to you, Nabii. When I come back, you'll get the opportunity to respond. How so? I mean, I've given you the opportunity, but we'll come back. We'll get to hear from you as well. Let's take a quick break. The hashtag we're using is MLive NTV. Talk to us. We'll be back in a short while.
Do not hold back in any situation. Eno gets to work on the 6 symptoms of heartburn fast.
You do know you said all of that out loud, right?
If symptoms persist, seek medical advice.
The Nuclear Power and Energy Agency, NUPEA, is a state corporation under the Ministry of Energy mandated with the development of nuclear power program for electricity generation in Kenya, carrying out research and development of energy technologies and capacity building for the energy sector. To this end, NUPEA coordinates all relevant nuclear infrastructure in the country. For more information, log on to our website and follow us on our social media handles.
Get ready to tantalize your taste buds and embark on a culinary journey with Pishi Bomba, the ultimate cooking show that brings the flavors of the world right into your living room. Tune in this Sunday at 6:30 p.m. with me, Claire Karatu, for a mouth-watering adventure. Pishi Bomba. Cook, eat, enjoy.
All right, welcome back to the program. You're watching AM Live as we take a look at the state of the nation this morning, and especially in terms of what's been happening in the political scene in the country. Mheshimiwa Nabii Namwera Lugari, Member of Parliament, you wanted to make your response on some of these issues, especially when it comes to the President's tour of Mount Kenya. We've had sentiments there. You have Kagusha, Mheshimiwa, saying the reason why the President is there is basically to track and give a track record of what is done.
Very well. Zainabu, there are a number of issues here. Yes, it is within the President's right to visit any part of the country. That it is not in contestation. What is in contestation, Zainabu, is that is it only the President who can get out of his office to go and explain what his government is doing? The President has a regional commissioner. The President has a county commissioner. The President has a deputy county commissioner who is in charge of a sub-county. The President has a person called an ACC. The President has a chief. The President has an assistant chief. And other than that, he has departmental heads all the way up to the ward. The moment, Zainabu, you see the President now is the one taking the lead role of explaining the policies of his government at the ward level, that tells you the government is not functioning. Number one. Number two, Zainabu, what we are running away from is this. Do you need to set the country into a campaign mood for you to explain your case? The answer is no.
But who is setting the country into a campaign mood?
The President has taken the country. The President has taken the country into a campaign mood. We are actually, now all of us have to get out of our offices to go and campaign. That's what it is. That's what it is. The third thing, yes, that's what it is. The third point I want to mention to you, Zainabu, is this.
Campaign for what?
How much money are we spending in all these things? Do we have a tested model that has worked for this country without getting on rooftops of cars? The answer is yes. Very well worked. And that's when we realize real development. Yeah? That's when Kibaki was in the president. We were not on rooftops every day. Finally, I want to submit.
But what has necessitated the President to go to the people and speak to them and tell them this is where we are? Is it
legitimacy? You know why we're running away from this issue? Legitimacy.
He wants to be legitimate.
Because if you really won the election, and you are in power and you don't doubt yourself, why would you get the country in a campaign mood?
President wants to be legitimized in Mukurweini, where he got 95% of the support?
Yes, because of the finance bill, Kenya started, the mountain shifted.
Let me just finish. You don't allow us to go this way, Kakusha, for shouting, because I will also start shouting, which I don't want. Now, what my brother is running away from, if the issue is hinging on here, public participation, well and good. Then if the issue is Zainabu, public participation, why didn't they allow the Finance Act to go the way the public wanted? Because the public said, we don't want housing levy, we don't want the taxes to be increased, let's go where we are. But they trashed it. If the issue is public participation, is it only public participation to suit their script? So what is the public's voice in this public participation?
You know, first, my brother here thinks that the government is not functioning because the President has engaged the public. And I know this is a pain point for Azimio, because there was an imagination that because now Ruto is there and the President is going to sit in State House and wait and watch a lot of misinformation happening all over, and that they would corner him at that. Ruto is not that kind of a person. He will explain himself to the public every day, anytime. This Nabi who is talking here and trying to give examples of Kibaki was one of the biggest critics of Kibaki. In fact, he's on record as having criticized Kibaki's modus operandus throughout.
Is it true?
And no, it's a fact.
All right.
You know.
You see, don't allow innuendo. By the way, I was in the Kibaki campaign team.
Nabi,
in 2022.
Nabi,
so you were never accused.
Kibaki was not vying in 2022.
That's besides the point.
And 2002 or 2002, we all know what happened after that, and he turned out to be the biggest critic of Kibaki and his operations. Now, the public, he talks about having refused to support the finance bill. Of course, is a opinion poll that was done by Infotrack that was showing very interesting things. And of course, the same Infotrack, 1 or 3 days or even during the campaign's time, and 3 days, 5 days
is it
before
that, or is it about
election,
the more than 1,000 memoranda that we saw that during during the public participation space?
Yeah, and of course the 1,000 memoranda were about different issues, which some of them were addressed, others were even in support. Are you getting? For example, there are so many memorandas that came to support the issue of increment of taxation on goods that have spoiled our market, manufacturing market here in Kenya, and our industry in Kenya.
It's an issue that the court also pronounced itself on.
The more than 1,000 memoranda were all of different nature. Some of them were in support, others were on certain issues. Quite a number of them were addressed, others were explained. And that kind of
but you do agree the contentious issues is what forced even the court to make its pronouncement.
But basically, what Azimio has been holding on to as the criticism of the Finance Act is basically the opinion poll that was conducted by already a body that has proved to be giving fake opinion polls. Just before the election, yesterday I was looking. Not allegedly, of course, because yesterday I was looking at the way some of these opinion polls painted Kenya, and I saw blue everywhere and yellow was only in a small strip. Are you getting? But when the election was done, clearly the yellow was all over and when blue was not.
All right, so the elections were done 9th of August.
The issue is.
But listen, Mheshimiwa, 9th of August 2022 elections is done.
Yeah.
We're 11 months after the elections, almost a year.
Yeah.
Why are we still in the same atmosphere 11 months?
Maybe what we need to do is you need to, maybe I would even want to challenge NTV to bring live some of the development tours that the president is having. For example, I wish you put it live, the kind of meeting he had in Sagana with the Mount Kenya leadership, where he explained to people details about the development programs that he's having and policies, up to the end. Never uttered a word in politics. In fact, it's only until the public demanded that he must explain his position on handshake, that he had even to come back. Ishungwa was already on the pod. He had to come back and now try to explain, okay, people, okay, no handshake. Are you getting? Now, the same way you do with Maandamano. Let me tell you, the moment media put Maandamano on live TV, from morning to evening, are you getting? It set the country.
So is this an accusation of what we're in an elections atmosphere because the media decided to report on the things that are happening in the country?
No, listen to me. When people go to Maandamano, and you know all those things are stage managed, you have people at Mlolongo pulling down the road, and media is there. A full day media focusing on that, and now you expect that you're going to focus on the Maandamano, that politicization of post-election arrangements, and you expect that
that's a serious allegation from you as a member of parliament,
it's not an allegation.
Right?
It's not an allegation. I can tell you, it is in bad faith that media focuses on some of these things that you focus on mandamano.
It is within the mandate of the media
mandamano.
To give the right information to the public in terms of what is happening in the country. But anyway,
that's
besides the point.
So
it's not an indictment of the media at this point. We're talking about why we are in an elections.
We are in an election
11 months down the line.
That mood,
yes.
As I'm saying and I'm explaining. Once the media focuses on those things, for example, you fail to focus on a development tour. You fail to focus on a development meeting. The kind of policies that I explained there are missed out, and that is why Justina maybe here is struggling to understand what our president was doing in Mount Kenya and the kind of explanation he gave to the people. But the day we have violent mandamanos on the road, media focus is there. Are you getting? Now, the mood is already set.
That's actually a very unfair assessment. But anyway, yes, Mheshimiwa, you can finish your point so we can hear what the rest are saying.
The mood is already set. And I can tell you...
So the media has set the mood.
In fact, the biggest contributor of this mood, 80%, is actually the media.
All right. Okay, let's hear from let's hear from Justina and then Mheshimiwa Nabi.
What Kenya Kwanza is expecting us, it is to support them. We are not going to support them, we are going to tell them the truth. They have a problem when the truth is highlighted. They need to know that our role, who are not in government, is to discredit them so that they can pull up their socks and perform better. Let me tell Mheshimiwa, because he said I'm emotional. I am not. He's saying that the president is going around to tell people. What is he telling people? What are the Kenyans saying themselves? He's not there to tell us what he wants. He's there to do what Kenyans are saying. Kenyans said we do not want houses to sleep in. We want industries to work in the finance bill. They never listened to what Kenyans were saying. So why is he pushing down? And he said his model is bottom up, but he's doing top down, pushing policies that are not making sense to Kenyans. I want to say this, that it seems that campaigns in this country are very fun, but when it comes to delivery, it's very boring. Someone cannot sit still and just do the work and see guidance on policy and all that. They just want to be seen on the rooftops campaigning. And maybe they might say that Azimio is making them campaign, but that is where they are failing. They already won the seat. The role of Azimio is to discredit them, or the role of anyone like myself who is not in government, to discredit them for that seat. So what they can beat us in is delivery. And it's not delivery to be seen on TV, delivery to be felt. That people are getting employed, taxes are favorable, at least there is no inflation, we're not seeing 150 shillings to the dollar.
But isn't the opposition providing an inconducive environment for the government to perform its function then?
The government said they wanted a vibrant opposition. So they knew what they were asking.
Would it be vibrant if the opposition is calling for the protests in, to the streets?
And that is why I'm saying the president owes Kenya something.
Violent, but
the president
calling for peaceful demonstrations.
Okay, let me say, this administration owes Kenya something that the opposition does not owe. They owe us peace, stability, and tranquility. That is what government owes Kenyans. So they shouldn't enter the rat hole of the opposition. In fact, that is why I opened my statement and said, because they owe us all that peace, tranquility, and stability. Give Raila Amolo Odinga what is demanding, so that you can give us the ordinary Kenyans who our bills are not paid for by this government.
How is that a solution, Justina?
It is, because remember, the problem we have in this country, listen, Wishmore, the problem in this country, and it started in 2007 when President Ruto was pushing Raila to get a handshake, is that sometimes we forget that when you have a problem, in the words of Shimon Peres, when you have a problem, you don't need a solution, you need a fact. But that time they never accepted that Kibaki won. That is why they pushed for a handshake. It is the same thing in Amramba now. So let them give him what he wants.
But we have heard from both sides in this second round of negotiations, that we've heard from both political sides that power sharing is not on the table.
Then they should have used Article 256 and 257.
Right.
Yes.
Very well. Within the president's right to engage in one. Then what is so difficult, even before we got into peaceful demonstrations that police turned into violence, what was so difficult, and then if you want to engage the public, what was so difficult in the president engaging Azimio when we wanted to engage on issues that we outlined? Because we said, can we first start by talking? Can we engage? Because we're part of the country. Secondly,
what's the agenda of the talks?
We gave what we wanted to talk. We say we want to talk about, give our views on how we can sort out this issue of cost of living. We talked about the issues, can we relook at our electoral system because it is causing us problems every other year, and all those issues. But that's not where I want to go. Where I want to go with my brother Kagusha is Kagusha, that other than this number you keep on harping on us, the 7.2 whatever million, does it concern you that over 8 million people never went to vote and 7 million others? If I go by the numbers that they give, 7 million others said no to this government. So 15 million people are out there. So they do not matter. What matters is the 7.2.
But it also matter to the people who voted in the
I haven't even finished my statement.
Okay, finish up.
There also. You become another Kagusha.
Oh my goodness, Mheshimiwa, that's a fair and a very unfair assessment of you. Right.
In a nation state, of course, we understand you say the country is a shareholding company. We understand that this is a shareholding company. But in the shareholding company, where the minority are pretending to have the majority shares, does it concern you? Because, Kagusha, if we don't be sober and address the issues we are speaking about, we will be in this circle for I don't know when. And that's what makes me and say maybe as a people, because we have decided that we want bad manners, maybe the system must go full throttle. Maybe the system needs to collapse, and then we reorganize the country afresh.
When you have people who voted in a government democratically that was upheld by the Supreme Court.
Which democracy?
Was it not, not held by the Supreme Court that the president won the election?
Neither here nor there. I've said I don't want to get there.
Okay.
I don't want to get there.
All right,
because we didn't come here to discuss the Supreme Court.
Correct.
Because
let's do this
discussing the Supreme Court.
Fine. We came here to discuss whatever is happening at the Bomas of Kenya.
Yes.
And really, if it inspires hope of some sort of resolution to whatever issues we are facing. So final remarks, Kagusha.
Seriously speaking, when Azimio says that they want us to engage on cost of living, they want us to talk about cost of living. Azimio was handshake government. All of us know that and understand that. Cost of living was extremely high when the handshake government was in place. And they did their best, by the way. And I remember one time when Raila in Coast did dismiss William Ruto and told him anabweka about cost of living. And why was he saying this? Because they were doing their best on how to bring the cost of living down. And it was okay. Do you know what they did, Zainab? They did what we call the consumption subsidies to the country, which gave us some kind of fake relief. They subsidized the petrol. They subsidized the unga. Never mind the 100 unga never really got to the people. The whole system was abused and misused. But they were doing what they know best, Zainab, on how to bring down the cost of living. That's okay. Fair to them, give it to them. They did their best. And for some time, maybe, Kenyans had a little bit of relief. Now, Kenya Kwanza has come with its own idea and approach on how to deal with the cost of living. And how Kenya Kwanza is dealing with this is by subsidizing production. And what you're looking at, how do we spur production in this country? How do we spur manufacturing in this country? And how we are doing that is by giving the fertilizer. Now you can see it is at 2,500. And I like one of the declarations that the president did give when he came to Mount Kenya region. Everyone told him, President, we are happy about that fertilizer, but it is not getting to the grassroots properly. And he gave a way forward on how that is going to be done. And I remember the people concerned were tasked, the governors and the Minister for Agriculture, they were all tasked on how to do that. So our approach on how we are tackling the issue of cost of living is absolutely different from theirs. We are doing the, like, of course, I know for them, they also wanted to do the housing project. That's okay. For us, we are not looking at it as just a place to live in. We are looking at it really as turning this country into a construction site where everyone is going to be involved in some form of economic activity. That's why the president has put high taxes on some of those materials that have been imported, furniture and such. and putting an incentive on the same which is manufactured in Kenya. Why? So that we can have an industry that is growing. I mean, this is our approach on how to bring the cost of living down. And I tell you, it is working. Do you know why? The inflation has come down from 9% now, is at 7%. This is the lowest inflation that we have so far had in the last 2 years.
But is it being felt on the ground with the public in terms
definitely it has.
In terms of purchasing power?
I can tell you, it's going to be felt as we are moving ahead. You know, inflation really has also to do with the production of food. The moment food is going to start being produced, we are also going to have the cost of living coming down. Right. And basically, like now, if you go to my village, which was suffering a lot because of drought, today they have a bumper harvest. And what that has done is that they no longer now need to spend so much money to purchase what to eat. They now can harvest and get from their stores on what to eat. And that is happening across the Republic of Kenya.
All right, so very quickly,
are you getting?
Are the talks going to solve the issues that we're facing as a country? Just,
you know,
as
when we
we
started, Zainab, I told you, we now have talks on the agenda. Are you getting?
Right.
Then after
we have to set the agenda.
We had to set the agenda.
Yeah.
Then after that, we will have another talks about the talks. We'll probably have talks about who will be sitting where. We'll probably have a talk about who will be spending how much time on the microphone. Are you getting? So we are going to have talks about the agenda, talks about the talks about, sometimes we are even going to have a talks about who dresses how and why. Are you getting? So I can tell you,
you're saying it's going to be a long road.
It's hogwash because let me tell you, these guys are looking for what you are hearing them say, inclusivity. Do you know what inclusivity is? It's handshake. And I can tell you, no Kenyan should be cheated or lied to that the Azimio side is looking for anything else.
So you're saying it's basically about the handshake.
It's about handshake. And we can come back here. We can come back here again.
Out of time,
and because handshake will not happen, that is how the talks will collapse.
Okay, Justin, I'll give you the last opportunity to. You'll fight you because you don't side on any.
Really?
I don't think she falls on any side. I think she's she's somewhere in the middle. Anyway, yes, Mheshimiwa Nabii.
Zainabu, first, it's not right that Kagusha can lie on public TV.
In terms of what?
That Azimio wants handshake. We are very clear. We don't need it. By the way, I would not want it to be an issue of debate because we have stated it very clearly. We have said we don't want to be associated, to be part of a criminal enterprise called government of 2022 going forward. But we are losing the point, Zainabu, that Nabii Nabwera, when I get to my constituency in Lugari, the person, why we are putting this issue of cost of living on the table, the person in Lugari is not interested in a house because he has a place he lives in. The person in Lugari is asking me, my child is not going to go to university with this new model. What the hell are you going to do for me? And as a member of the education committee, I even don't know what to tell the 600,000 students. I mean, when they went into the portal and they found that when you have to choose a university, the first thing you are meeting there is their fee structure. Yeah? And they are now being told, you are being turned from a student into a debtor because you have to get a huge loan. So the people in Lugari are asking me, Nabii, how are we going to educate our children in the university? They even ask me, you have a JSS class here which has no laboratory, it has no teacher. What happens to our children?
So with all
they even ask me, Nabii, your child goes to which school?
Okay. So with all these things, the talks, will they solve those issues?
That is what I'm telling you. My problem is, the moment Kenya Kwanza closes its ears and understanding to discuss the issue of cost of living, there's no talk. There will be no talks.
All right, Justina.
Let me conclude and say, for me, where I sit, the issue is not whether they won or lost. Uhuru Kenyatta gave the sword democratically, having said he's not going to give to a thief, and he was privy to undiluted information. They won. Where they are failing is on delivery. The president had said, nikieka Biblia chini, unga itakuwa 100. Also in January 2022, he said, if you cannot afford NHIF, the government will pay for you. Those are the things the ordinary Kenyan is looking at.
So do you think the talks that the opposition and the government are holding is going to solve any of those issues?
No, in fact, they're not going to solve. And that is why I said, let's cut to the chase. Give us what they want very quickly. We move on. Because the ordinary Kenyan, and to remind the ordinary Kenyan, what it means.
Is that the solution?
Let me see for the ordinary Kenyan, and that is a challenge to them going forward. What does it mean, kuingia serikali? You're paid for your fuel, you have house mortgage, you have health care.
So you're basically agreeing with what Kagusha is saying, it's the handshake.
But what I'm not agreeing with him is that they're saying they're not going to give out handshake. Okay. Let them give out as a karma for 2007 when Raila Amolo Odinga demanded Ruto to support him to get it from Kibaki. But finally, I want to tell Kenyans this, that everything that is happening, finally,
we're done. We're done.
Okay.
Right. All right. Okay. Allow me to wind it up on that, because we're completely out of time. But thank you for your contribution as we take a look at really how the next few weeks will be panning out in terms of those bipartisan talks happening at the Bomas of Kenya. Justina Wamai, 2022 presidential running mate, Nabina Wera Lugari, Member of Parliament, John Kagusha Mukurweini, Member of Parliament. Thank you so much for coming in this morning to have this discussion. And this is where we wind up. Your World is coming up shortly with Winnie Lubembe. My name is Zainab Ismail. Good morning.